God damn it. All right, we're now recording and meeting come to order at 7:07 or 06. We're a little ahead of time. Okay, then, no alternates in sight. Approval of minutes, Jan 20. Anyone?
I just had one suggestion. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes with some minor corrections.
All right, and the corrections would be?
Okay, well, I just, under old business, Mason Road open space acquisition update. We wrote that the appraisal by Silverstein Appraisal Services is in progress. I'd like to suggest that we add just a couple little items there. And I'll read it, and if we approve it, I can send this to Marilyn. So Marilyn, don't feel like you have to scratch it out right now. Okay. So what I'd like to suggest is we add in, at the CC's request on 12/18/20, the Board of Finance approved a transfer of $5,000 from the Selectmen's budget to the CC's budget to be used to cover the cost of the appraisal. The CC has engaged Silverstein Appraisal Services, $2,800, and TW Henry, $950 to do the work. And just so that it's clear who we contracted with, because we had discussed it at prior meetings and said we'd move forward as long as those two agencies were still available.
Right.
And I just wanted to acknowledge that
Okay.
the money was coming from the Selectmen's budget. It wasn't as if we went to town meeting to get the money, so.
I'll second that.
Okay, and I have a correction also. I just
Okay.
realized, oh, we have to vote on the,
All that stuff was in place at that time, at that meeting, that we'd already done that, so we must have it. We were saying that we're in progress, so.
are we
everything-
still on the minutes, approving the minutes?
We have
Like,
to vote.
Yes,
Yeah, because I have a correction on the January minutes. It should be that I will prepare the request for the 2021-22 budget. Because the CIP request went in back in December
The
okay, so
CG
that's,
will prepare the request for what?
for the 2021-22 budget, annual budget.
Annual budget.
Yeah. So instead of
And-
this, just for the,
Scratch
just say
out
that
everything
the,
after, scratch everything
budget.
out after the word,
or you can just say, just
CIP.
prepare the request for the budget for the upcoming fiscal year.
okay.
Yeah, but
Just
we're
substitute
replacing,
that for CIP report. We'll
Yeah,
take
yes.
care of it.
okay, so that's another correction.
Not
Bob,
under the same motion?
Yeah, I'll second both of those corrections.
And who was the
okay, that's
first?
what I was gonna say. Do you want to back up and second both of those?
I think,
Any discussion on those or any other additions? All right, hearing no other discussion, and have a motion then to approve the minutes of January 20th with the two mentioned corrections. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, and Kathy, you'll forward that word in then to Marilyn. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
is that good enough, Marilyn,
That's
on
fine.
that? You got,
Yeah, that's good.
that'll
Thank
be
you.
coming. Okey doke. Now, let me check my list. No one's trying to sign in yet. I haven't heard anything one way or the other from either Julia or Jackie. Okay, so I'll put it this way. And see where we are. No one's bringing any presents to speak to us. Treasurer's report.
okay,
Any report on the regular old treasurer there?
there's no change in the expenditures against the budget. But as of yesterday, all of the bills for the appraisal should have been paid, totaling $37.50 and leaving a balance of $1,250 from the $5,000 that was authorized. However, as far as I know, nothing has actually been transferred in to cover that expense. And I think they were waiting to see what, to know what the final figure was. But I can check on that. But the bills,
Do we need to put that in?
I don't,
Do you
so
want me to, do you want me to put the amounts in there or just that the appraisals were sent to the finance and were paid?
yeah, the balance of the bills, it was, there was a balance of Silverstein had a retainer of 1,400, and we submitted a bill for the balance of his, which was another 1,400 plus 950 for T.W. Henry. And
Do I
so
need to
those are
put
both
out-
should have been paid at last night's selectmen's meeting.
Do you
I don't
want
think
all-
you need, I don't think you need to break those down in the
I don't
minutes.
think you
Just,
need to just say it, the appraisals have been paid for,
Okay, thank you.
just reporting that.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, the only other thing we've spent is that should have been paid at this point was some lumber, I think I bought, and the trail guides.
Oh, I haven't seen a bill for the trail guides. Did you submit that directly to Tish?
I didn't get it. They said they'd send it to the town.
Well, I
And
Tish didn't,
that
I'll
was some,
talk to Tish because I haven't, she didn't say anything. I talked to her yesterday and about the corrected bill for Mr. Henry, and she didn't say anything about getting something. So Pete, what we paid Willard for the post for the Q code, whatever it is.
right, for the
Yeah.
new
That was
trail.
Willard.
map.
That we paid Willard,
Yeah.
we paid our memberships to CL Cackaway and CLCC. And that's all that
Okay.
I've seen. So I can check with, I'll make a note to call Tish and see her, see if she got anything printed. That should be 100.
Yeah, I've had these trail guide. I've had these trail guides here now for, at least 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks, so, and,
But yeah, but I think, but
but
they're
anyway,
not, anything printed is not always speedy about stuff. So I think I was one other time that it got toward the end of the fiscal year where I had to take a trip around there to pick up an invoice so we could get it paid. So I'll call Tish
Yeah.
tomorrow and check on that.
no, that's okay, yeah, all right, on that, so those
yeah,
are
maybe-
our expenditures.
And I think we already made a motion in a previous meeting to pay for those, didn't we? Does anybody remember?
Yes, we did, it was,
did.
up
Yeah,
to,
we did.
we said up to $200.
Yeah, right. Yep, that's what I thought.
So, and it was $1.30 a piece,
Yep,
I
yep,
think is what they
that was
were.
at the December meeting. Yeah,
Well
that's-
under that.
I just want, I was sure we had the approval for that. So I'll call Tish
yep.
and see if anything showed up there. But she
All
did,
right, thank you. All right, so CIP, all right, we've,
on the budget.
I guess, on the recording here, I guess we can just say that CIP has incorporated our requests.
Pete,
Well, at this point,
now on the budget, do we want to, at least, you sent copies of the budget request that we put together. Did you send that? I think you sent that out to everybody also.
Yeah.
So,
I believe I did, but I'll just.
You want
Yeah.
a copy, you want a copy of that?
Just going along in the order that I've got here. So CIP, do we want to mention that in the minutes
yeah,
here?
and I forgot to download the agenda. I used it to get on into the meeting, but I forgot to download a copy of it. So I haven't got it in front of me, sorry.
All right, so we can just, we don't have to say anything about CIP then.
Because everybody's, no, I don't think so. I think we're,
We did have to, after one of their meetings, we had to correct what they had in their minutes regarding, they said that the grant money had been approved.
Yeah.
They misinterpreted and I think we squared them away on that.
I think they're clear on that.
Right, so now we're on to the budget and yes, was an agreement that people got a copy of our budget then?
Yeah, I got it.
As Carol.
Yep.
Yeah. okay.
Yeah, because I
So
think you
that-
forwarded
that's
me.
just, so that was, just, we were sticking right with our basic amount and divvy that up and it's off, so.
Yeah.
So that is tomorrow night that we're on deck to go and defend that or answer any questions. I don't foresee any problems, I guess, if we're just asking for the same thing, which is kind of what they requested.
And one thing I did
and
was separate out the
we
open
all-
space monitoring from the park management stuff. So as a separate item. So that's the only, a little bit different from last year, but it all adds up to the same 1,500. So I don't think that's going to be a problem either.
Yeah, we just, well, let me see here.
Peter, I have.
Well, we're just, we put in money for education and that side of stuff every year, but we end up shuffling some amounts in the budget for that, but I think we're still good to defend what we've got there. So, yeah.
Excuse me, I have.
Kathy, you have a question?
Yeah, for 20, I know we're in this budget year right now. How far along, Carol, are we in terms of expending our budget for this year?
So let's see, we still have a balance of, oops, I put that piece of paper aside. We still have a balance of $1,280
From the 15th,
minus what we're spending on anything printed.
minus what we're spending on the trail guides?
On the trail guides for anything
Okay,
printed, yeah.
so, and Peter, how much approximately was that?
It's 103, Pete?
$130, I think.
130, okay.
That, I think they said $1.30. Yeah, at one
$1.30,
point.
okay. A dollar, so it'd be $1.30. But I haven't seen that bill yet. Once I get that bill. But I don't think we've had it talked about expending anything else at this point other than that.
So here it is, February, almost March. We've got what, 4 more months?
Yeah.
To spend this money. Again, I'm just, Peter and I have to go to the Board of Finance tomorrow, and I doubt they're going to have many questions because our budget is fairly low. But in terms of, if they ask how we're doing in terms of expending our budget for this year, if we have any other ideas in terms of how we would expend the rest of this money, or we think there's going to be money left over. So just a question.
Well, yeah, I think Jackie was doing some work at least on the Daleville School Road property. She had notified the abutting landowners, so we may owe Jackie some money for that. And I don't know if she was going to be doing Pinecrest as well. So there may be some money expenditures coming in on that, but we'd have to follow up with Jackie to see what progress she's making. I was trying to think if there's, but I don't think, and it's possible we might want to hire somebody to do something at the park. So I'm not too worried about that. And in this, for the current environment, if we returned a little bit of money to them, they probably wouldn't mind a bit. So, it's, I don't think we need to necessarily try and spend every last penny to justify future requests, particularly since we're talking about perhaps hiring contractors to do things like clear the open meadows and that keep the meadows open and that sort of thing. And we mentioned hazardous tree removal as well. And in that case, we would really be lucky if we could get by on 1,500 next year, if we have a year like this when we have a lot of hazardous tree issues.
Right. Okay.
I think we can worry. We can.
So I think we can say something about where the money might go. So
yeah,
that's probably good.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else done on budget at this point? So we'll go tomorrow night. At least I will. I don't know. Anyone's free to join.
I'll join you, Peter, just in case they have some questions about the appraisal.
Yeah, because that would be great, guys.
Thanks.
We do have family here tonight.
Be good.
It's hard enough to keep the kids wraps. Kathy called and it's like, can I say hi? Then his sister wanted to say hi. So, it's been a little crazy.
Okay, moving on. And Mason Road open space acquisition update. All right, so we've got various things going on there. We've got the appraisal. We've got the appraisal review counting as a second appraisal. The bills have gone to the now question is, where do we go from here? I think we're still probably going to should put a hold on it until we find out whether there's going to be a grant, because if there's no grant, then I don't think we're going anywhere with this.
Well,
So-
if there is no grant announcement, I mean, we still have the option of going back before the Board of Finance to see if they may consider moving forward with it if the money's already appropriated or, in the potential budget for the year. I mean, it's a possibility. We could always ask them that, but we've been telling them basically that we're not going to move forward unless there is a grant. So,
and we've been telling them that's contingent on receiving grant funding. So one of the things that we might want to consider too is, they said, well, the price of the property could change. And so there are issues on whether we want to ask for any change in pricing. There are issues on timing. There are issues on whether or not to put in any purchase or sales agreement contingent upon a grant amount of a certain dollar amount. That was done. I don't think that was done with the first Talmadge purchase, but it was done with Knowlton, but Knowlton was a much more expensive project. And, as in the documents that Kathy sent, it showed that was not going to go through unless we got at least 250,000. In this case, the purchase price is so much lower. But I'm not sure that I'd be, we've been saying we're going to apply for a grant. We're not going to move forward on this unless there's a grant. So, and that's what you've told the family as well, isn't it? Or is it?
Right.
Yeah,
They
so-
understood that when
Yeah.
we started talking about, that we were interested, but we would have to move forward and talk to the Board of Finance, and it'd have to go through all the different hoops that we need to through the town, and that basically would be predicated on getting a grant. And they understood that and were willing to wait for us to kind of work through that process.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think that I would be very reluctant to go back to the Board of Budget, particularly Board of Finance and CIP after saying over and over again, we're hoping to receive grant funding. I just want to be cautious about not to overstate in the CIP document, but if they're comfortable with what they're putting in, then, and that can certainly be discussed when when the CIP plan goes before a town meeting for budget. It will be at the same meeting as the budget meeting, I believe.
Right.
In April.
And we should know by then, one way or the other, if the state is going to open up another grant round. I
Right.
did make a call to Amy Blaymore Patterson, who is the director of CLCC. Basically, that's the state organization that we belong to. They basically work with all of the land trusts and so on in terms of open space. And so she's got her finger on the pulse of things there. Now, she sits on several committees, and one of them is a committee that makes recommendations to DEEP about open space purchases as well. So she says right now on the 24th of January, they're going to be making their announcements.
You mean February, Kat?
Excuse me, February. Thank you. February 24th, they're going to be making their announcements for the open space grant awards from last year, people that applied for 2020. And, her feeling is that the state is delayed right now because of COVID, and the governor's budget and bond committee meetings and such are making it difficult for them to kind of come out right now and make any announcement about further funding for this year. But she has a feeling it will happen. It's just being delayed.
So we don't know yet whether they'll also be delaying the application deadline, which they really should if they're going to have delayed so much more than, it's so much later than other years.
Right. And they did delay the application deadline this past year in 2020 because of COVID, because it was, harder for people to get documents from town office buildings and get letters of support, get their appraisals done, and so on and so on. So they had pushed it back, and I imagine if they have a delay in announcing the round, that they would also delay, push back how far it'll be before people have to have their applications in. Last year it went up to July. So the good news is we're ahead of the game because we've got the appraisal done.
Yeah.
Right.
What if, Kathy, what if they don't fund this year? Would we be able to use the same appraisal documents for next year's, for a second?
According to the rules for DEEP, it can only be a year or less old.
Yeah.
So it would, unfortunately, if they, we couldn't use it for next year's, for 2022.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
So, but, let's cross our fingers and hope that the state announces. According to Amy, she said Governor Lamont has been a big proponent of open space. It's also in their climate change resiliency plan. The state hasn't met its goals for open space purchases. So it's really a priority for them. Other than that, we'll just have to have bake sales. Raise the money.
It's too bad we can't get travelers to support us.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so in case we were going to be, just for reference, in case we were going to be discussing strategies or anything, I checked with the authorities on what would be necessary in order for us to go into executive session to discuss anything. And it kind of looks like by the rules that anything we'd be talking about here wouldn't qualify for
That's fine.
an executive session discussion. So, so anything we talk about in terms of whether we want to negotiate the price of the property, we'll just have to talk about. So I don't know if we want to get into any of that at this point, or
Here, I just want to say that I did speak to, first of all, let me just ask this of the commission. Did everybody have an opportunity to go through the appraisal at least? Maybe not the review, but the appraisal?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
All right.
Yeah.
So you understand basically what the market value is. Do you have any questions about how the appraiser reviewed the other properties, the comps as they call them, to kind of match it up with other sales in the last 5 years? Does anybody have any questions? There's a page on page 51. There's an adjustment grid. So basically it takes 5 other sales, and it kind of looks at the different characteristics of all of those properties, and it adds in value or takes away value depending on how it matches up against the property we're interested in, and comes out with a per acre value, a price per acre value, and then kind of puts the reason they came up with the amount they did for our market value on the property we're interested in is they basically put it in the midpoint compared to those other 5 properties. So I just didn't know if anybody had any questions about that. You know, I had talked to Bob Silverstein about it, and you know, he helped me to understand better about how the appraisers basically look at the physical and the locational characteristics of the property against the ones they're comparing it to. So,
I thought it was very interesting, actually,
yeah,
to see it, how they adjusted for certain conditions and different land uses and all.
well, yeah, that's where the appraiser's subjective opinion and experience comes into play.
right.
You know, that can't be really quantified really precisely unless you have a property that's exactly the same and with exactly the same characteristics on the same kind of road and meeting all the other
It was interesting.
other features. So that's where they you know, put in fudge factors, so to speak, for giving it a plus or a minus in terms of the price.
Well, I think that's why you find that they sort of go back to cost per acre.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
seems to be their threshold that they keep as a reference for properties after they consider, you know, one property is a lot more acreage or smaller acreage. It boils down to cost per acre.
Yep.
How
I
many
thought it was
lots?
interesting that the prices on vacant land had been fairly stable since 2013. I thought that was very, very interesting.
And it's interesting too, the last property, sale number 5, that they compared the subject property to. I don't know if you realize it, but that's the property on Route 44 that's adjacent to the Knowlton parcel
Mhm.
that we
Mhm.
had looked at. So that parcel just sold a few months ago.
How much did it sell for?
It sold for a total of $230,000 for 47 acres. which came out to $4,864 per acre, based on the price. But if you did the adjustment on it, it came out to $7,400 per acre. So, but the other thing Bob said is you have to consider that the overall cost or the prices for these properties, there's usually the commission is built into them. So if somebody is selling a property, they will, because they're going to have to pay the broker a commission to sell the property, they usually build that into the selling price. And it's usually about 5% for land. He said 5 to 6%. So sometimes, you know, the seller and the buyer negotiate and each pay 50% of that, but you know, there's a price kind of built in there. So for example, if a property is on the market for $125,000 and it's 5% markup, if you will, because the seller is going to have to pay 5% of it, about $6,000, then really what the property kind of value is, if you will, would be you know, 119,000 instead of 125, because there's a $6,000 amount that the seller is going to have to pay to the realtor, and they're going to net the 119. So that is one thing we can consider when we think about if there's open space funding and we move forward to negotiate with the family, we certainly can address those kinds of issues, that there is no broker here, there's no realtor involved. So what the market value that the appraisal came out as, you know, is based on the concept that that's had a commission built into it. So we can ask for them to consider selling it for less because of that. So that's one factor we can consider. The other one that with the particular property is that there's no boundary map for this property. We are taking a risk. The property started out as a 50-acre parcel. We bought 28 acres with the first Talmadge parcel purchase, and then they sold 5.6 acres with the house. So the 16 acres is what, quote unquote, is left over from the 50. There was no boundary map of that 50 to start with. So moving forward, you know, we're saying in the open space application that there's 16 acres. But let's say we have the A2 done and it comes in at 14 acres or 15 acres, we're going to be paying even more per acre. And if, you know, if it's less than 14 acres, according to the open space folks, you know, they can consider our application, you know, is not valid because, you know, it's not within a 10% threshold of, you know, what we say in our application versus what the real acreage is.
And also, but Kathy, didn't Jackie come up with an estimate that would minimize the risk that it would come in too low?
Yeah, she did, but you know, she's not 100% on that until you have the final survey done. So
yeah, does UConn have a boundary document that would be of any use to us? Because we're gonna have to have have it surveyed, and the more.
We researched, Jackie and I researched all the other maps, survey maps that were available for contiguous parcels. And there's one for the Talmadge, of course, that we did. There's one for the house acreage. And I'm trying to think if there was another one for an adjacent lot that has the farm. So
you used to have the Christmas tree farm, and yeah.
Right. So the surveyor going in would certainly use those as well, but we don't even know. There could be a boundary dispute, you know,
Right.
that we had that with the Knowlton property.
Right.
And that costs more time and money. So, I mean, just in terms of negotiation with the family is what I'm trying to say is
Right.
we can say, you know, would you consider selling it for less, you know, a certain amount less because of these items, the survey that we're going to have to do, the fact that we're not 100% sure that there's 16 acres there. And, you know, the third item being that there's no commission. You're not going to have to pay a commission.
Right, and we're also going to have to remove tires and automobile parts from the property unless they want to do that for us.
Yeah, didn't look like there's too many of those anyway.
No,
did it?
not too much, but it's still, you know, it's not, it's something you would want to have resolved as to whose responsibility was going to be.
All right, so these are good things to consider when we move forward on that. And I guess we'll just hang fire and see if we get some sense of whether the grant's coming, and then we'll put together some kind of a proposal to take to the Talmadges, and we can discuss that. Maybe Kathy and I will put together some kind of proposal, and then we'll send it out and discuss it with the commission and see where we want to go with it, if that sounds like a plan at this point.
Yeah, I think we just have to be a little bit careful about the sending it out and getting opinions back and forth through email that ends up being considered.
Well, we're supposed to do it at a meeting, which I guess we can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to distribute, but we have to be careful not to do too much by
Any
email, comments
discussion,
by
yeah.
email, because it can become
Right.
an illegal meeting under FOI if we do that. If a quorum of us exchange comments, then, you know.
Well, we'll just call a meeting, that's all,
We'll call a meeting, and
special meeting.
yeah, and it's fine
Yeah,
to
easy to
have
do.
people review something to look at in advance, but we probably shouldn't be exchanging our opinions with each other outside the context of a.
Okay, so do we want to, are we good on this topic for tonight then?
Not yet.
Oh, Bob, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would suggest that, Peter, you and Kathy start drafting an outline or a rough draft of that letter, so that it's not left to the last minute. You can just sort of punch in the last minute facts, and we can talk about it and massage it as a group.
Okay, good idea. I have it right here. Do you want to talk about it now? No,
Well,
I'm kidding.
No.
No, well, but my thought
We haven't-
is just to get a leg up and get.
I understand your point. Yeah, that's good. We'll
How about if you have
start
a,
working on that. We
how about if
should
you
be
have
thinking
a
about it.
working group for that, anybody who wishes to be a part of it? Or it could just be
Well-
KD and PA.
Well, I think also that I'd be reluctant to have people put an awful lot of time and effort into something until we know that there's going to be state funding, because we've told everybody we're not moving forward without, it's all contingent upon grant funding. And yeah, we've talked about some stuff, and it's fine to sketch things out, but I don't know that we want to be, you know, I don't think to formalize it is necessary at this point.
No, I'm not talking about formalizing. I'm just talking about outlining and getting our facts down so that all the fine details can just be added afterwards.
It's
So
only
it doesn't
7
have to
days.
start from scratch.
It's only 7 days from when you said the 24th.
Well, they're going to be announcing the winners from last year, Maryland, but that
right.
doesn't guarantee that they will also be announced. They typically do that.
Typically, it's after that, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
There's nothing typical right now.
yeah.
There's nothing out there that's typical anymore.
But I do think if they make the announcement late, let's say it goes into March, that they're going to extend the application deadline, because they're going to understand people are going to need to have appraisals done and so on and so forth. So, you know, I don't think they're going to make us try to squeeze it in by May.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would hope that would be the case.
Yeah.
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 But I will say, you know, we do have
Okay.
that template. I sent you the template when we were working with the Knowlton family. We had a letter that went out to them, you know, with our offer, and it had some rationale there for the offer being lower than the appraisal. The other question I think we have to decide is, when we do this, are we going to share the appraisal document with the family? I personally don't see a problem with that.
No, that's
Okay.
just being upfront,
Mhm.
you know?
And that way they don't think that the
Oh, I
appraisal came in much
agree.
higher.
Yeah.
Right, right. Well, and
Yeah, we aren't gonna-
then they have the real facts then they have the real facts to understand why we're asking for possibly 5% less for a price because of the no fees, you know, realtor fees, and they'll have the actual, you know, they'll know where they were when they were asking also.
Yeah, there's a lot of words in the beginning of the appraisal document about who can use it and when and where and with whom. But
Mhm.
Kathy talked about Silverstein and clarified who can use it and when and where, and that would be all legit. I mean, just you need to put out the understanding that people can't use it, you know, other than for this particular
Right,
process. And
Yep.
we wouldn't share it with them in any case unless we were, you know, going to be pretty definitely going forward with it, not just, you know, blue sky and the idea with them, but,
right.
you know,
Yep.
on
Yeah, but it's also
our
clear,
way to seriously looking to come up with a purchase and sales agreement.
but it's also clear from
So,
the appraisal that
We'll,
that the price that they had it posted at where they were asking when they were marketing the property was higher than, you know, there's a reason why it didn't sell at that price, let's so to speak. And there are also, this appears to be the last item in the estate, and it's been 10 years since Dan Talmadge died, and I think they're all anxious to get that resolved, because none of them are getting any younger either, and they, you know, they'd like to just get this whole thing resolved. So they probably would not be successful probably in marketing it necessarily.
okay, we good on that subject for tonight. Anybody else?
I just have one other
Kathy, we good?
question, because Peter, you and I are going to Board of Finance tomorrow. If they do ask about the appraisal, are we going to be able to share the amount with them? Or discuss it in some way? I mean, it can be publicly, I mean, there's no problem as far as Silverstein is concerned with it being public knowledge. So that's not an issue, but, you know, if they ask tomorrow.
Well, if we say the appraisal's been done, the obvious question from them, how much was it?
The one
So,
thing that
so I don't think we can sit on the answer. I mean, the town is paying for this, not, you know,
Yeah.
we're not personally paying for it, so.
the one thing though is if we're going to be negotiating with the family, it might be, well, there might be some advantage in not having that public disclosure until we can put together a negotiating package where we bring into account all of the various the concerns.
I've thought about that too, but if we're gonna, you know, I mentioned, I sent a note to Mike McCool about, you know, we're on the program tomorrow night, but, and if it's, you know, we could bring Board of Finance up to date on where we are on it, and that's the only thing we could bring them up to date on, is, I guess, is the fact that the appraisal's done. So if the appraisal's done, either we say nothing, or we mention that with the probably consequence that that figure will be out there.
Yeah, or you can sort of hedge your bets by saying the appraisal is in. It does nothing to change the amount is going in the CIP plan, but it also without actually stating that, you know,
And if I were on the
disclosing
board of
that.
finance, if I were on the board of finance, I wouldn't let those Weasley words get by me. I'd say, yes.
Well, just say,
Would-
but on the basis that we are hoping to negotiate with the family and, understanding that it's, we've been going around this, or have we not in tonight's meeting? But, it's, if you're going to negotiate, sometimes you need some wiggle room.
Well,
And,
that's clearly the case, but I'm not sure we can do that in this case.
well, let's use your
Well,
judgment.
I agree with Carolyn. I mean, we can say that basically the appraisal is consistent with the family's expectation, and we don't expect that it's going to change our financing request with the town should there be open space funding.
Yeah, we can say that, but if I were on the board, I'd want to know the number
Well,
because they're paying for it.
Yeah, but they also know that
Well,
generally,
but I also think
Uh,
there's an advantage to the town if we can
Marilyn, you got-
negotiate.
you wanted to say
I'm sorry.
something, Marilyn?
I'm
Go
sorry.
yes,
ahead.
I did.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Generally, I don't think there's any board that they understand that when you're in the middle of negotiation, there's things that are very delicate and they need to accept the fact that we cannot expose that information right now because it could affect the negotiator. And I would hope that they understand that. I mean, you do that whether you're buying a car, those things are they're delicate discussions, and you really don't want it to get out now at this point, because it could be an embarrassment to the town or the family. It's a family matter right now, and I don't think it needs to be discussed because we don't even know if open space grant money is going to be available yet. So I would say hold it as close to your chest as you can at this point.
Yeah, I agree with Marilyn.
I agree with you, Marilyn. I guess you've persuaded me. Yeah, we can try that and say that. That's reasonable. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's to the town's advantage for us to try and negotiate a lower price. It may not be significant, but any change, that modification in price would be to the town's advantage. And tell them we don't plan, we plan on not negotiating with the family until we know that there will be grant funding available. And for that reason, we can't be specific, but we are comfortable with the information that will be put forward in the CIP plan.
Okay.
That's what
Anything
I
else on
recommend.
that?
And that's sort of weaselly, but not too weaselly. It gives them a fairly good idea without saying they came in.
Hey, they've been weaselly with us for 15 years, so
Oh, but
Oh,
they're
I don't
good
know.
now. They're good now.
They're
Let's move on to B.
don't be too quick to run up and give them a smooch.
Well,
No.
they're coming forward on their word.
Well, they are. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they
Yeah.
did us good last year too. So,
Yeah.
but, so they need to be patient with us with this one, with our response now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think if they understand that we're not going to be trying to negotiate a price upward, and therefore we need
Okay,
to
yeah,
go
let's move
forward.
on now. Fenton Ruby Management Plan, we're gonna can for the night, I guess. We don't need to go anywhere with that, I think, unless you want to say something about that, Kathy?
Well, the Fenton Ruby Management Plan update, there's nothing to say
Oh,
because we're
understood.
waiting for the town meeting.
Right, oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's the town meeting, yeah, it's
Yeah.
Knowlton Towns.
Speaking of town meetings, however, I wondered if there's any chance that we would want to have or need to have by the end of this fiscal year, a purchase and sales agreement in place with the Talmadges. Since we were going to town meeting to ask for 5,000 from the open space fund, which we're gonna go back and reimburse the operating budget for, right? For the cost of the appraisal. If we could ask that the call of the meeting say $5,000 for appraisal and legal fees, so that we would then have at least $12.50 toward legal fees for the purchase and sale, which I don't know whether that would be sufficient to cover the purchase and sales agreement, but it would give us the possibility of.
I
some-
doubt it. I doubt it.
Well, I mean, we know that,
Well,
I mean, if we're talking, I'm talking about using the 5,000, there's 65,000 and change in the open space fund. We're talking about 6,000 being applied against the purchase price in CIP. 5,000 we were already prepared to take for the appraisal.
well,
Yeah.
town meetings are a ways away. Why don't we just wait and see if we're gonna go anywhere if we get a grant, and then we can talk about town meetings.
Well, it just seems to me,
Thank you.
I think we need to check and see what their schedule is for calling a town meeting, because it would be very simple to just say, can you add the words "and legal fees" to the $5,000 request for funding from the open space fund, rather than finding ourselves wanting to do that and having no money to do it. I don't want to keep going back to them and nickel and diming these poor folks over things. If there's a possibility that we could, within the original request of $5,000, have some additional funds available that we might be able to use for the purchase and sales agreement, if we needed
Okay.
it before the end of June.
All right.
So we might want to check with the selectman's office as to when they're planning on calling a meeting, and,
So I don't think they know, because.
I don't think they know,
No.
but it might be
And-
something, that might be something also to ask the Board of Finance about, because they would that would probably, just in case, because we don't want to come back to we don't want to keep coming back to them. They're getting tired of seeing us. And, we took very clearly, we say, well, I think the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, Stuart Cobb said,
No, I don't-
have a
I don't
handle on
think-
this,
I don't
and I
think-
said,
I
fine,
don't-
thank you, we
I
don't
don't
want to
think
waste any more of your time.
I don't think we need to bring this up with them tomorrow night.
No,
Oh,
at some
They're-
point,
They're doing the budget, and, we'll see
well,
where it
that's
goes.
well, it's also a regular meeting for them as well.
Yeah, but I'm sure they want to do a minimum there, and what they
Yeah,
want to
right.
do is what they're going to
Okay,
do. All right, so then Knowlton Talmadge plan, we're going to hold an eye, Kathy, for now.
Yeah, I thought there'd be too much discussion on other things, and I don't think anybody's had a chance to review the Talmadge part of the plan. Anybody here?
no, I
feel
haven't.
that we
had a chance.
need to discuss
No.
it?
Too busy reading appraisal documents.
The only thing I will add to that agenda item, Marilyn, on the Knowlton Talmadge Management Plan, is Jackie and I went out to take a look, she with her forester eyes, and you can write this however you think best, but we went out to look to get her opinion as to whether or not she felt that if we wanted to move forward to do a timber harvest on the Knowlton side, whether or not we would end up coming out, we would end up paying to have the timber harvest done, or it would be a wash because we'd have enough firewood, or whether there was enough timber logs there to make it profitable. So Jackie took a walk out there with me, and we looked, and she was going to get back to the commission with her thoughts on that, because she was going to look at the original volume of wood that Conwood had put in their plan. So
If this changed significantly, because that plan was done 10 years ago.
right, so her gut feeling was that it certainly just would be a firewood cut. There's not a lot of timber saw logs there to make
No.
it really profitable. The question is, did we want to do it for forest health management? And they had also recommended some patch cuts, to open it up for early successional growth.
Yeah.
And so she was going to try to figure out, if we went forward with that, if we hired a forester to work with us, who would then hire a cutter to do the harvest, whether or not.
What was the name of the second style? Instead of doing the, looking at the value of the wood, you said we would do a different.
I guess, Marilyn, for that item, maybe we can just say is we're still reviewing whether or not doing a timber harvest would have a net gain.
Okay,
Or
Yeah.
at least break even.
or
We just
break
don't want to be try to avoid being out of pocket if
yeah.
we can.
Yeah. Sorry to go
No,
on
that's fine.
about
No, that's fine.
Okay, good, yeah. Yeah, I forgot you mentioned doing that, so that's good.
That's fine.
All right, properties management, Ben Ruby Park.
Is there anything else significant? If not, I'm gonna go say goodnight to my grandchildren. If there's anything of significance or requires action.
no.
Okay,
No.
okay,
All
bye
right,
guys.
yeah.
Good night,
Thanks,
kids.
Carol.
Bye.
Good night,
Everyone enjoy the kids.
thanks.
Yep.
Well, I can't, oops, where's my, I'm looking to leave, but
Peter, I think you skipped properties management.
yeah, I think, is anything else?
Excuse me, easement.
Yeah, what about D? We kind of blew past D.
I don't have the agenda. Remember, I haven't got the agenda in front of me.
Okay, so you're
I thought you
staying,
were- I
Carol?
thought you were leaving.
I am, if I can figure out how to, oh, there's leave. All right, bye. See you
All
guys.
right. Okay, so, easement property, Daleville School and, Jackie was going to be doing those. I'm not sure where we are. I was expecting her maybe to be here tonight, but, so I know she sent out letters and, had made, an appointment maybe to talk to one of the owners who was interested in being there, so. So that's just tabled at this point.
Yeah, I think we should just table that. There's nothing new.
Yep.
Right, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Right,
you.
correct.
D.
I don't have anything on Fenton, Ruby and Dropney coming up. Anybody else been out there or have any
No.
issues?
No,
Okay, Knowlton Preserve Talmadge Tract. We did try to see about, apparently the parking lot out there was not being plowed. So I wrote a note to Troy and say, how about could we get the parking lot plowed? And he said, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. And then he wrote back the next day and said, oh, the people we have plowing Mason Road aren't signed up to do the parking lot. So I don't know. The town must hire someone else to do Mason Road other than Public Works.
yeah,
Well, he said, and we don't have any time to do it. I made the case that a lot of people use it and the parking lot's full on the weekends. So I wrote a note to Erica to that effect, mentioning that Public Works doesn't do it and that we'd like to have that fixed. And that I mentioned that to her and said we need to talk about doing that. And that was back on February 3rd. I sent her an email and I have not heard anything back from her on that. So I need to follow up on that.
Oh, thank you.
So I don't know if you want to just mention it all, Meryl, maybe it doesn't even have to be
Yeah.
mentioned. Yeah, that the commission
Just
is.
mention that the parking lot is not being, plowed by either the department or the independent contractor that leases that is,
Yeah, that's good.
maintained
And
by
we're
the
just-
town. And leave it
We're
at that.
pursuing a way
Yeah.
to get that done. Yeah, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and the other part of that, we just talked about in terms of the forestry. Trail maps,
Peter, excuse me.
um,
On Knowlton, I just want to report one other thing. Chris and I were walking, we take a walk on the road every day. And we noticed across from the parking lot, you have a sign there that has an arrow, says trails. And that post is actually it's on the right of way, but it's really more on the Talmadge property than on the town's property. And the post has been put in a large group of rocks, like a big mound of rocks. And it looks like somebody came and took a lot of those rocks away. So the post is very exposed now, the bottom of the post. And I don't know who took or stole the rocks. They're on the Talmadge, family property. But it's right across from the entrance to the parking lot where that happened. So I don't
It
know.
wasn't really too solidly embedded there anyway, but it sounds like it's less solidly embedded now.
Yeah, it's less, the snow plow coming by and, with snow flying might knock it over, but also I am a little concerned that people are stealing rocks, It's not our property,
Well,
but it's one of the
That
things.
is-
Oh, go ahead. Well, I'm wondering if we
That
might.
unfortunately is not much we can do about.
No,
So
you can't.
they're gonna do that, especially when they're right next to the road and they just stop with a pickup truck and throw a few rocks in the back. And
Sure.
they have some nice weathered rocks with nice mossy lichen patterns for their landscaping. So
Yeah,
anyway, so I don't know if we need to worry about the sign being on the Talmadge property or not, if as long as it's keep it on the right of way, but we may need to move it anyway if the rocks disappear.
right.
So,
Well, the other
but
thing.
we can put the sign on the exit to the parking lot, I suppose, just bring it on our side of the street.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
But eventually that, likely if, that's hopefully going to be the town property anyway at some point
Mhm. Yeah,
in the near future.
and
so
you
that
could
won't matter.
always have the trail start right there across from the parking lot instead.
If one wanted to get out and make a new trail, yeah.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be that hard because people are already walking through that way.
Oh.
Yeah, you can
Through the
see,
woods-
through
through
the
woods
snow,
there?
there's a lot of people walking right through that way.
In the woods
Mhm.
to the west of the road. Oh, all
Mhm.
right.
Yeah,
Well, okay, good. Let them make the trail then. We'll just improve it a little.
one of the things we might want to keep on our radar screen as we get further along, and if we haven't spent all our money this year, is maybe to buy a trail camera or two, one of them to put in that parking lot, so that if there is more litter damage, whatever, we might have a better idea of what's happening out there.
It's a good idea.
Does someone have a radio on? Or something?
The TV is way in the background.
Oh,
Are you-
okay. No
I
worries.
can-
I was just, because I didn't hear it before.
Wow. You got good ears, Marilyn.
Yeah, I hear a little bit. Okay, so anyway, then, well, we go down
Trail
Knowlton.
maps. We stopped at trail. We went back to Knowlton and with Nexus trail maps.
All right, yes. Trail maps, Jackie sent out some updated versions. Another thing I did, I checked with, we were talking about getting some laminated maps. I talked to anything printed, but they said we got a better way to do it. We print them right on a plastic vinyl stock, and they'll last a lot longer than laminated maps. And I said ballpark cost, and Pam said Joe wasn't there, and she said, well, ballpark couple of bucks. So that's well within reason if we get maps and just stock up on a bunch, because they'll need replacement. If we did 10 of each, 10 Fenton Ruby, 10 Knowlton Talmadge, and spent 40, 50 bucks on getting these done, I think we'll have a stockpile. So we'll wait and finalize copies. So I don't know if we want to talk about these. Anyone have any comments on these maps? Now, I need some tech help on this, because when I try to print out those maps, they don't fit the 8.5 by 11 format, and I can't get them to print with the with the scale, the distance scale on the bottom of the map. So I tried playing around with shrinking it, but and playing around with the printer, maybe I need to play some more in terms of shrinking it, but I don't know if you can change the proportion to get it to print better. I was gonna maybe ask Jackie about that, but unless some of you have tried to print that and found a way to get it to print the scale on the bottom.
Peter, one of the things we could possibly do is if we can't print it out, we could ask Jackie, maybe she has a printer that's a little different because she's a forester and has to print out larger maps. And then she can just get us the paper copy that we can give to the printer.
Well, I think the printer's gonna want a digital copy, so in terms of sending it to them, they said it's best if you have just send them a digital copy, which Jackie can do
Yeah,
right to them. And they should be able to print to whatever, format, I would think, but,
You could also go to the UPS store next to the Price Chopper, and they'll be able to send a digital copy to them. They have all kinds of pretty.
I was just trying to make a couple of my own copies here, and the scale either disappears or it's not all there at the bottom of the map.
Right.
So because it's longer than the format, of the 8.5 by 11 format. So anyway, but that's not a big deal, because if we're going to get the copies, as I said, that I'm sure anything printed can deal with that. Does anyone look at these things or see that whether they need any more tweaking or something missing? I didn't.
I looked at them. They seem pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, the yellow on one of them is hard to see, where for Julia's, but other than that,
Yeah, there's a yellow on the Talmadge Spur Trail where it's kind of blue, a double color, blue and yellow. It's a little bit light there, but maybe we can run with this to start with and see how it goes. And if there may be other things that need tweaking after we put them up there, or look at them, or something gets added, we can do later. But these seem to be good, to me at this point.
And to be able to put the QR codes on them, Jackie said we need to put the maps on the town website. So I did send them over to Tish, and she's going to put them on the website. And then from the website, Jackie's able to put the QR code, because what the QR code is actually doing is basically creating some kind of it's the link. It's when you snap on that QR code, it brings you to the link that brings you to the town's webpage. So, yeah. So when Tish lets me know she's uploaded the maps, I'll let Jackie know, and then she can create the QR codes. And once the QR codes are on the maps, then you can send them over to anything printed.
Okay. Do we want to make a motion to put forth a certain amount of money to print a bunch of these things?
Yeah, I had figured out how many we might need. I came up with at Fenton Ruby Park, there would be potentially 4 places to post them. And then on the Talmadge Knowlton, there'd be 5 places to post them. So that comes out to about, it's 9 total, but if we want to double up on that, and say, 18 altogether, let's say they're $3, $4 a piece. Maybe we can take a vote to spend up to a certain amount.
Yeah. See, I don't know, Pam may have been out, but I think she said something around a couple of bucks a piece. Was her off the, which may or may not be right. Well, yeah, so.
Well, instead of a couple of bucks, why don't you say 3 or 4, and then if we don't spend it all, it's a wash anyway. That way you're covered.
Right.
So I'll make a motion that we appropriate up to $100 to be able to print out the new trail maps with the QR codes.
$100
Up to, yeah.
up to.
I'll
You wanna-
second.
Is anything printed get included in this? The name of the company that we're printing, or does it matter?
Mm,
Does that help with when the invoice comes in for them in the financial office to match it up?
um,
I don't think they reference our minutes.
yeah, go ahead, because that's where we're gonna take it. That's where we're gonna.
So we're gonna appropriate up to $100 to print trail maps. Just call them trail maps.
Mhm. With
Sure.
QR codes.
Yeah, with QR codes, anything printed
Yes,
in parentheses. They haven't, I thought they were relocating. I guess that hasn't happened yet.
well, they're trying to sell the business.
And
and
that's,
so far
all
people-
of it, everything like that is slow these days.
Yeah,
Nothing moves
yeah,
as
so
quick as it used to.
they're not gonna be moving on that right away.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so, all right, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, do we want to put a number on that, or want to do the same number of each, or just more for Talmadge? I guess,
I didn't put a number in, I just put the
Yeah.
money in. The
well,
rest
no,
of
you
that
don't have
is
to,
just-
you
yeah,
don't have to, you don't
Yeah.
have to put that in the minutes.
Right,
No,
this is just housekeeping now.
for my guidance, yeah, if I
Yeah.
go there and, or
Well,
we can't,
if
or
you-
we,
A total of 8 for Fenton Ruby Park and a total of 10 for Talmadge.
all right, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right, good, thanks. All right, so now we're down to town development. Anything being developed? Anything out there, Bob?
Now, a couple of home businesses. The plaza is coming up before us next month or end of this month. They want to open, I believe, in March. And they're talking about new signage for each business that is more readable. Other than that, no, not really. Some few things going on in South Willington, but nothing really substantial right now. Some stuff that economic development is working on, trying to incorporate some of the items that were brought forward 4 or 5 years ago when they did that study and got most of the structures in South Willington on the National Register. That's pretty much it. Kathy had asked me what was going on with Loves, and this was, I guess it was last month. Mike had made mention that he hadn't heard anything from the state that Loves had gotten any of their permits that are required, but he understood that Loves were trying to shoot for starting that project this spring or early this summer. But he says they can't move forward with that until they get their permits, and they still need to come to the town for a couple blessings in that sense also. So that's
Okay,
where that's going.
good. Are you talking Phelps Plaza there or something?
Yeah, Phelps Plaza, the folks that had bought that, they reshingled it. They did a lot of work to that house that's right next to the road and to the tracks. That house is going to be an area where they rent equipment. And the old store where the grocery store was is going to be like how do I want to say it? A discount type, inexpensive prices for a lot of stuff.
Okay. All righty then. Thank you. Collaborative organizations, I don't have any, haven't received anything from anybody, any of these other, know what anyone else is doing out there.
I have to get a drink of water, folks.
All right.
Peter, just a quick question while Marilyn's gone on JT. Is there any possibility if we do move forward with the grant, have you, who would we explore the idea of whether or not JT might be able to contribute anything toward the purchase?
Well, it's still the same. As I said, I've written them 2 letters to to Mike Beam, to Warren Church, and to Paul Prabula 2 times inquiring about whether Joshua's has, this part of their strategic plan in terms of community outreach, where they're doing that, and haven't gotten a response anytime.
Hmm.
I think Marilyn said too, when we mentioned this before, that the trust is doesn't have a lot of money flowing around, and I can understand that. So,
Sure, okay.
so I don't think that's going to go anywhere, in
Okay.
terms of handout. Just the fact that they've ignored me twice, trying to tell me something.
There's pots on the back burner that are bubbling, so,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Good way
Well,
to,
it is maple syruping time, so
is
that's
maple-
not,
there's
that's
sometimes-
understandable.
Sometimes there's sweetness that comes from maple syrup.
Yeah, right, yeah. So anyway, and then we're looking at another piece of property next week, and I forget how many acres off,
50,
maybe 60 acres or something.
I think it's 50.
Yeah, with that people are looking to sell, so I don't know if the trust is gonna have money for that anyway, so anyway, that isn't gonna go anywhere. It looks like. We've been talking about future park and trail maintenance responsibility. I did inquire about that with the first select person, and again, nobody likes me. I'm gonna eat some worms.
Your breath is going to give you away if you do that.
What was their response? Was it positive, negative, or they didn't want to, they were going like this,
And I wrote to Erica there, and that's been ignored too.
Okay.
Then, since I wrote to her, and, things are going on in town too, but, we can, it's about, the park and trail maintenance responsibility. I wrote her a letter, and that if we can set a time to talk about, maintenance, and I talked about storms and more requirement with more storms lately these days, that people get out with a chainsaw, and the vast increase in the attendance in the parks and people on the trails require keeping things in a safe condition and maintaining the infrastructure. And so I asked that if we could sit down sometime, Zoom or otherwise, and talk about some options for getting maintenance assistance in the park, other than us old folks. And she hasn't gotten back to me on that either, but I've been spending, enough time, not as much as Kathy, on trying to juggle all this other stuff here with purchase and all this stuff. So I will get on that at some point in the future.
But I will write, and I'm going to write something in a minute so that it shows that we're going to keep this in the minutes to let them know that this isn't just a sidebar. This isn't the appetizer. This is the meal, because they are going to have to address this,
Right.
whether they want to or not.
I don't know whether we should take it to mention the fact that an attempt was made to.
but you sent a letter. What's wrong with that? That you sent a
Okay.
letter
Oh,
to
yeah.
Right.
the person?
Yeah, I don't say that. Yeah, a letter has been sent to the
First select woman.
to the first select woman regarding getting help. You can put in some words, you can
Trail
probably come
maintenance,
up.
yeah. I will send these minutes out for review before,
Yeah,
just
okay.
because it's fairly simple to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a
So
big deal.
yeah. So that doesn't have to be complicated, but just give
No.
the gist of that in there. So you're right. Good idea to keep that alive in the minutes. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. Daily award, I suggest we table that. We talked about a possible candidate, but we also talked about that it would be nice to do it if there were a ceremony sometime when we could be outdoors and in the spring and not burdened by the other events of the time here. So I suggest we just table that at this point, unless someone else wants to say anything about that.
No,
Any other old business?
no.
Okay, new business. I haven't received any correspondence, and I don't have any other new business. Anyone else have new business that they'd wish to proffer at this point?
Well, again, I think I'd just like to bring up, I think we have to keep this on our burner too, is getting new members for the commission. Brainstorming a little bit more about how we might approach that. If people have some thoughts and ideas of, how we can reach out to individuals who may have some interest, or post something at the park on the kiosk, or put something, if we do end up, I'm not sure what's happening to the newsletter with Maureen being gone, if somebody else is going to assume that duty. But those are potential places we could kind of reach out to see if maybe there are some interests in people at least attending our meetings, or considering becoming, members of the commission.
Yeah, we could put a separate ad maybe if the newsletter continues, but I've always had a paragraph at the end of entry I've put in there with the Conservation Commission saying who we are, where we meet, and that we're always looking for new members to maintain the trail. So that's always been there, but maybe we need to take out a full page ad or something.
Well,
And yes, we mentioned, I think somewhere, somebody did, a couple of people here, I don't remember who, about just putting a sign in the park at some point,
yeah.
some location, out where we, the new sign post that we will be putting the new trail map with the QR code on it right there by the dogs on leash. Can make that kind of a secondary information center there. A lot of people don't go over to the kiosk anymore. They have no need to, but they would be walking right past the signpost there. And maybe another something there. We can come up with something that advertising for additional trail help.
Well, hopefully
And
they would take that
members.
more seriously than keeping their dogs on the leash.
Yeah, right. All we need is a couple of people anyway, though, that would make a big difference. So
Yeah.
you're right, yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a way we can try to get a young person involved with us somehow, either to start to put some things out on Facebook, or maybe cultivate more youth involvement in what we're doing. Again, haven't had kids in the education system, so I don't know how to reach out to teachers or educators that might be able to identify young people in town that might have an interest in this. But we trying to cultivate it in younger folks is where we should be at too.
Facebook is not for young people. It's it's just Silverhead. And they're on TikTok, and
Oh, okay.
Facebook is they abandoned it a long time ago. It's because we all showed up and they all left.
Good point, Mary.
You'll have more luck on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, so Marilyn, you put in a sentence or two there under other than about the commission is always
Yes.
is
These new members.
hoping to attract new members and
Yeah.
people that can participate in the
Yes.
conservation issues in town.
Yeah.
Just one sentence or two there
Right.
would be good if we can squeeze that in. That would be great. Any other old business?
So
Yeah.
as far as writing something up for the kiosk, I'll try to work on that, okay?
Okay.
You might
Okay.
want to do something funny with maybe taking like a a picture of Uncle Sam needs you and have it be a tree instead of Uncle Sam with the arms on it or something. Just
Yeah,
to,
that was just coming to me just before you said that too, Marilyn, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Uncle Sam.
you
Or,
this place, we need your love. We
or,
need,
or Bucky Beaver needs you, or Smokey Bear,
yeah.
Smokey Bear needs you,
Okay.
or Tommy
Alright.
Turtle.
Tommy Turtle.
Yeah.
All right. I'll
How
try to
about
look.
how about Rosie the Riveter?
Well, that occurred to me too there too. Yeah, right. I
Yeah,
know.
we can do it. We need you.
There you go.
You can put Rosie in some Carhartts and holding a chainsaw.
There we are. I
We
think we've got a winner.
we still
think-
have the old list of friends of the park, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible just to send an email out that just asks if people are still interested in being on that list?
No, you ask them if any of them are interested in actually coming to the park and helping and also participating. I think there's going to be a point where we're going to have to say, we're leaving. I mean, we mentioned it at the last meeting that, the two people in the opposite squares from, diametrically between, the two of the four of us have mentioned that they're not necessarily going to be around in the summer, and you shouldn't, because you have homes that are in Connecticut. And who knows what Bob's up to?
Yeah, I could.
I'm joking, Bob. I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying, two people have already communicated that the end could be near. That's fine, but the town needs to know this.
Well, I'm not planning on leaving the commission.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be much available through the summer, for example. Peter was very proactive last summer in terms of
Right.
getting someone who kind of, volunteered to be there through the summer at least. And perhaps that person will be available again. But I think you're right, Marilyn. We do need to get more people who want to do things at the park. And I think in general, if we have a work day and you put something out, you'll get a few people. But nobody wants to be held kind of responsible for, figuring out what to do. They like to show up and maybe work for an hour or two. So we always still need somebody who kind of is that volunteer coordinator, if you will.
Right.
You've hit the nail on the head, Kathy. That's the same situation that the Historical Society finds itself in. I've already told them that I'm not going to be available as president, a candidate for president for another 2 years come August or September at our annual meeting.
Mhm.
And yeah, everybody wants to just show up. They enjoy what we're doing, but nobody wants to take any responsibility. And that's what it takes, unfortunately, to make anything happen is a little bit of responsibility.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, even people just show up. The last, seems to me, the last X number of work trips we've had, we haven't had either one or nobody for at least the last 3 or 4. When we publicize that, send out something, put it on the town website, bulletin board, and out to Friends of the Park. We've had zilch. Gary Griffin showed up once and.
Well, it's interesting. I've found myself out there with a chainsaw wandering around on the trails, cutting stuff out of the way, and people come by and they're so appreciative. Oh, thank you for so much for what you're doing. We love coming here.
Yeah.
And that's the same kind of conversation I have with people with the Historical Society. How do you? Where are those people that want to take that little bit of responsibility? They're far and in between.
Well, we want to phase ourselves out, but you get people to volunteer and they say, what do we do and how do we do this? And that almost, takes more work to organize them and show them what to do and take them out to the trail and say, this is what we do out here, than it is to just do it yourself.
Yes,
And
that's true.
there's no guarantee that they're going to pick it up and take it from there after after you organize a work party for them out there either. Anyway,
Right.
so we'll have to kick that around. See if we can get some new members. Yeah, there's about 65 names on the Friends of Fenton Ruby list.
Well, I mean, just to send an email out sometimes, just to be sure that you still have a list, people still want to be on the list and if those emails are still valid.
Yeah, usually when I've sent something, well, it hadn't been for a couple of years, there's, a whole bunch of them bounce back as, not
Right.
changed their email address or disappeared or whatever anyway, but
You
yeah,
might,
I can do that at some point.
you might be going into spam.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Maybe. That's what I feel like. Spam
Spam.
in a can, in a can.
Okay. One other thing to throw out, and if you guys need to go, just let me know. But if we need to have people do some work in the park, we have another big tree come down, or we have a bridge that needs doing. I think we have to start to think about who we can hire. What are the potential resources to hire? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
You get professional people that work for a tree company and
Yeah.
we tried to get some numbers on having, Kathy, you talked to somebody about having barberry removed. Yeah, we'll do that. It'd be $3,000 for us to do that, or whatever,
Right. But I'm wondering, I mean, if there might be a handyman, so to speak, people that advertise they do home improvement or handyman jobs. If we had a bridge that needed building, would that kind of person potentially agree to go out and build the bridge? Does anybody know of anybody locally in Willington that does those types of small jobs?
Well, the handyman to build the bridge is gonna need a bunch of people to help carry all the materials out there too. So that's gonna cost money. If he's getting paid, they're gonna have to get paid. What we're putting in there for labor is hundreds
Well, I mean,
of dollars to build a bridge, but
yeah, but
That's
Peter,
reality.
when people pay somebody to construct something, they're expecting that person to figure out how to get the materials onto the job site. So I'm just saying in general.
oh, well, yes, I would expect that too, but that's gonna cost a lot of money, is what I'm saying.
But Peter, what are we gonna? It's
I
gonna
don't know.
cost. Well, we might be able to do a hybrid where we get some of the materials out there over a period of a few weeks, doing it piecemeal, and then we say to the person, okay, everything's at the job site, go and do it. But what I'm asking is, does anybody know of any potential resources? Because we've got money that we're saying we're putting in our budget for people to hire people. I'm just asking us to start to think of maybe making up a potential list of people we could call.
I personally do not know anybody who would do that kind of outdoor
don't.
handyman.
Okay. There's advertisements occasionally in some of the little newspapers that go out. I don't get the Chronicle anymore because we've been away for so long. Do people still get the Willimantic?
I still get it, and the same names are on that back page of the paper every week.
Yeah. Would you be able to look through it, Marilyn, just see if anybody's listing themselves for odd jobs?
I will look and see.
Okay, great. And then I know Ashford has their monthly newsletter, and they have a lot of the businesses listed in there. They have that at the Ashford post office. They leave a copy of that out. So if anybody happens to pick it up, or if you see something even, posted at the Willington post office, sometimes people put up postings, or anywhere you go, keep your eye out. And we'll see if we can figure out maybe finding somebody, or maybe we can put some kind of an advertisement out ourselves, looking for this kind of a person that can do these kinds of jobs.
That would
Yep.
be stopgap, but what a town needs to maintain its recreation facilities is really a commission or board on town that's, will take care of and manage that stuff and oversee it. The bigger towns, obviously, like Mansfield, have, parks crews and people in charge of parks and do the supervising and the hiring and organizing. And, Wellington isn't going to be there, but it's still the way to get it done. You need someone, that's going to manage things themselves, and oversee it and the whole bit. So,
Well, I know that they hire out some of the activity, some of the maintenance needs at the rec park. Those are, they have a budget to hire out contractors to do certain work. Whether or not going forward, we put the town decides to put the park underneath Park and Rec, where then they'd be responsible for figuring that out.
well,
I think that's the way it has to go.
well, that's the kind of thing that we put on the table if we ever sit down and have a talk with the selectmen, or at least start with Erica, that I put in the letter to her about discussing ways to do that. So, that's the first thing we should try to do, I think, is to broach that topic with the management and.
Yep.
Wait till it's spring and we can, and I'm serious, I'm not joking about this. Wait till it's spring and have her come down to Fenton Movie Park and we'll sit at the park bench. So it's outdoors, socially distanced. And who's to know, maybe she has never been there. I'm not asking her to go on the trails, just come to the park, and have a discussion.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner from the town hall.
Yeah.
Come see us. Get her outside for a couple minutes.
Yeah, well, it's an idea, I guess.
Mm.
Well, we could, on a nice day in the park on a weekend, we should, maybe the commission set up a table there, put up our sign and put out refreshments and see who wants to, and a big sign, interested in helping with Fenton Ruby Park. On a nice spring day, I can do that.
Mhm.
Wouldn't mind. Get a couple of people, set up a table, or use one of the picnic tables,
Yeah.
put up a sign.
Yeah.
I'll get the Conservation Commission routed sign that I made 15 years ago to use at the flea market there. It's been hanging in my garage. We're gonna hang a tree up there and make
if
it
you
look
put up an advertisement, bring your dog to work day,
Yeah.
we'd have lots of people.
Yeah, I guess. All right, well, keep that in mind too, as spring recruitment day.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, we potentially could connect it with some kind of park activity like a hike, or a bird walk or something.
Yeah, right, that's a good idea.
So
Yeah,
I'm gonna put that under the B where we talk about future park and trail responsibilities. I'll just put a little note in there that
Yeah.
we're planning to do a recruitment drive at the park. Is that what you'd like me to put that in the minutes under A or B? B other, I'll put it under other.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, have a Barbara Austin walk or something and have a recruitment day around that, or, at the park, or,
Have you seen Barbara Austin around at all?
no.
Okay.
did you see that Xanadu sold?
The what?
No.
Xanadu. Remember the house that we called Xanadu? That's across from Barbara's house on that parcel that built that elaborate Italian mansion adjacent to the park. It's sold.
Oh, yeah, Xanadu,
Xanadu, yes.
yeah. It went for a lot less than $1 million that I think maybe they were trying
Yes,
to
it
sell.
did. Deb and I went to the tag sale when I had
All
it.
right, are we finished with the meeting? Because we're still recorded.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there's a new owner of that
Right,
house.
yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe, yeah. Recruit abutters. Okay, and if there's no other new business, we could stand to adjourn at 8:43, I guess. Next meeting is on March 17th. And we'll see where we are vis-a-vis Talmadge, by then or on the way, and keep people apprised.
Okay,
Thank you,
All
guys.
right,
All
good
right.
seeing
Bye.
everybody.
yeah,
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
bye-bye.